Aloha. Before I start this video, I just wanted to let people know that one of the videos that I did recently talking about the government as the gaslight operation in reference to climate change has been blocked worldwide for copyright stuff. I'm not surprised. It had all those clips from Russell Brand, Bill Maher, Stephen Colbert, John Oliver, Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Michio Kaku, all those TV shows, everything pretty much in the mainstream media and the mainstream mindset. It was just a collection of all of the people who are in the mainstream media talking about, how climate change is the biggest thing that we need to face, and how it's basically all run by the government, the university system. It's all one big mafia that needs to control you instead of by coming to your house and taking your little gold, which they're doing anyway, just behind closed doors. They're actually fearing you into believing into this system and making you love this system. So while you're loving this system, you also have to be afraid of losing this system, and you have to be afraid of challenging this system, and you have to be insecure about what you think about this system. So you have to believe that the system is for you, for the people, which is why they have to share that whole freedom mentality. Oh, we're all about freedom. This is the new world. This is the free world, and so on and so forth. So that video is down. It was basically about gaslighting. And funny enough, the Discovery Science channel on YouTube, I think they have a Discovery Psych now, like Discovery Psychology, like 2 days after I posted that video. Not like it has anything to do with the one that I posted. It was just a coincidence that that Discovery Psych channel posted a video about gaslighting, talking about what gaslighting is. So yeah, basically that video is down now. I'm not sure if I'm going to figure out how to be able to put it back up, if I'm needing to. Probably just do another video talking about gaslighting and its relation to climate change, just to get that information back out there again on the channel. But yeah, I just wanted to say that real quick, just in case people were looking for it. It's not there. And if you make videos, please make a video in that's pretty much saying the same thing if you feel interested in it, because it's a pretty big perspective that will help a lot of people see the depths of the mind control of this system, no different than like flat earth. But for this video, I wanted to run down real quick like some of the inconsistencies of movements, or the end games, my perspective of the end games of these so-called movements that are out there in society right now, and just kind of give or share my own experience, my own and my interpretations of how these so-called movements are being pieced together. Like from me going through the movements and having been observing these so-called movements for a while, and really just boil it all down to like how this entire system, this entire sand castle that is out there, that we call the so-called powers that be system, the fiat currency system, the maritime admiralty system, all of these systems that we pride ourselves in as the evolutionary peak of this reality, are largely just garbage. It's a cartoon. It's another way of imprisoning people, ultimately. And you can either be imprisoned You can be imprisoned by your soul, you can be imprisoned by your mind, and you can be imprisoned by your body. And you can be imprisoned by the illusions that are projected into the mainstream media. You can be imprisoned by your own artificial ego. You can be imprisoned by the idea of forward progress and movements, and pride yourself in what it is that you believe from this current state of consciousness, and just hold yourself there. And that's where growth actually becomes stagnant and starts to turn into pride. That's basically what this video is about. Is like, if you become stagnant in a movement, that stagnant will have like a chemical change and turn itself in. That stagnation will turn into pride, because that's energy. It's kind of like a fermentation process or something. Like, it's gonna go bad if you don't do something with it. If you don't keep the microorganisms out. If you don't keep keep the environment sterile, if you don't step into the next stage of alchemy, ultimately, then you will become subjected to the parasites, the bacteria, and all of the other garbage that is out within the atmosphere that is looking for something to feed upon. So that's what happens when people become stagnant. And this is what the mainstream media, this is what the intention of the mainstream media is. This is what the intention of these orchestrated movements are. It's to lock you into a particular belief system, hold you there, make you defend that system so it can suck more people in, and which is sucking more food in, and have you defend the system and become proud of the system, and hold other people down from challenging that system by talking about their own systems. This is why flat earth is such a big deal in reference to heliocentrism, because heliocentrism is such a big deal in the collective mind control program. So the more people are stagnant, which is distraction, which is artificial ego inflammation through televising the Kardashian, televising all these Instagram models, televising all this materialistic versions of reality, and indoctrinating your children into protecting this system through becoming stagnant and becoming the food or the battery cells for this enslavement program. The more food that this system has, which is potential energy, that the system turns into kinetic energy. If you just pride yourself in the potential energy, which is what the entire foundation or the infrastructure of the American dream, the American way is. It prides itself in potential energy. That's that whole everybody has an opportunity in the free world to make it. And you hear Oprah's ass out there talking about, it's your responsibility. You can't be waiting on anybody. Everything in your life is up to you, and ... Not saying that that's not true. I'm just saying that that kind of mentality sold the way it is, while also not simultaneously recognizing that there's a very definite enslavement program in alchemy against the individual, against the collective people, by a particular group of have and have-nots. That's why Oprah has to sell that program. She has to sell the self-empowerment. Focus on the now. Don't worry about the past. Just forgive the past and empower yourself to become successful. Like me. I'm Oprah. I came from nothing. And now look at me. I have my own network. I'm one of the most powerful people in the world. I rose to the top against all odds. Look, I could do it. That's what all these actors and musicians and athletes are. Meanwhile, like football players, you have millions and millions and millions of children bashing their heads against each other, trying to make it to the NFL or trying to be cool or trying to be successful, giving themselves brain damage in this sport that is worshipped, this gladiator arena that is worshipped in society. And only a small percentage, less than 1% of them will actually make it into that stream of Major League Baseball or the NFL or the NBA, whatever it is. The main point is that millions and millions of children are missing out on the opportunities that they have based upon their soul expression, because they have locked themselves into the idea that society has told them that they need to be. If you're tall, you should just be playing basketball. If you're big, you should be playing football. And people get in that, and it's fun. It's just like how this system makes you like the system. It's fun to play football. It's fun to play basketball. I used to do that. And that's how they get these children. They get them young. And then the parents actually do the work for the system. The NBA and the NFL and the MLB are not out there for the benefit of the people. That's supposed to be just a game, just to have fun. And when you have millions and millions of dollars vested in that system, it loses something. This is why you have all these asshole athletes that are out there that don't even respect the game at all, or they don't. I mean, there's a whole, I don't even really want to get into that now, but you know what I'm saying in reference to what that system is. My main point is that look at the numbers. Look at the numbers, and that's my main point. The numbers of people, the numbers of children, all the children in high schools, mainly minorities right now. Look at the so-called minorities. Look at the inner cities. That's your only hope. You're either going to deal drugs, get into, some kind of robbing people or some shit, or get into sports. Like, you don't have any opportunities in, like, normally. Like, that's the norm. And the system it benefits from that because they make money off the prison system. And they make money off of you going into the military. That's what I did. That was the only option those are the kind of like the only options that lower income people have, is that you're either going to be on the streets, try to make it in sports, or go into the military. And even if you go into college, you're going to get yourself into debt. And nobody wants to do that. So it's like you're funneled, you're chatteled into these self-destructive programs. Either you're going to go into debt by going to college, and then you're not even like guaranteed a job or anything like that. You're just going to have to tough it out in that stupid ass system until you get some little paper degree that really doesn't mean anything today. Even a bachelor's degree doesn't mean shit. It's mostly about who you know. Then you can get into the racist programming and so on and so forth, and it's even more difficult than there. Or you're going to go into the military, and the military is just going to do the same thing as school does, or the university system does, but multiplied times like 10,000, because now you've lost every part of who and what you are, because you're now a government number. Like your life isn't even yours anymore. They can literally give you a gun, tell you to go walk out into a field to do something, and you're basically like a mine tester. You're walking out there, looking for mines, or getting taken out and told to take other people out, which will affect your entire life. So that's like the ultimate not giving a fuckness about who and what you are as a human being, and just basically using you to protect this system of enslavement. So that's what happens when, and that's why, they give you all of these bonuses and these opportunities, because they know that money's going to go right back into the system. Stupid ass privates in the military are just going to go buy a Mustang with their bonus check. They're going to go put half down on a stupid ass truck. They're going to buy some dumbass TV or a sound system. They're going to lift their truck. They're going to do all kinds of dumb shit. And before you know it, $10,000 is gone. And they're still no different than who they were, the little 17, 18, 19-year-old kid they were. Even now at 30 years old, still 40 years old, still 19 and 20-year-old mentalities. That's what the military does. That's what the mainstream program does. That's what social media is doing. Social media, that's the intention of social media, to maintain those vibrations, those mental vibrations, those spiritual vibrations, those physical vibrations. They're all based upon locking you into a self-enslavement program. And as long as you're there, you're good, because that's potential energy that will never get turned into kinetic energy. You'll never actually do anything with it, because everything that you're doing, all the kinetic energy that you think you're doing is actually kinetic energy for the system, within the slave system. So all your kinetic energy is not your kinetic energy. Your kinetic energy is actually the enslavement system's kinetic energy. And you just keep building up potential energy within yourself that will get used by the system. So this is what happened to me when I got out of the military. And this is like a good segue into what I wanted to talk about with this video, which is these movements. So all of this, when I got out of the military the second time, I went straight into the university system. I was an English major, and I thought, that was what you need to do. And then I realized that this shit is the slowest shit ever. If I was going to stay in that 2-year English degree program in Cal State East Bay, then I would have been miserable for the next 2 years. Not only that, but what I was really seeing was 2 years in that kind of system actually felt like 6 years of my life. 6 years of potential. Like 6 years of potential and kinetic energy is what I felt like at that, what was that, 2011? Yeah, 2011. Like it felt like I was needing to do 2 years to finish my English degree, which was no problem. I could have done it, but I would have given up like 6 years of my life. And the same thing goes for like the military. 4 years in the military actually feels like 8 years. I mean, when you're in it, like when it actually sucks 8 years. That's another better way to explain it. It actually like sucks 8 years of your life away. But when you're in it, when you're totally in the system, you just acclimatize to it just like anything else. So it might fly by for some people, but actual energy, life force energy, you're losing 8 to 12 years of your life force timeline energy having been in that system. And this is why they got to get you young. This is why they cater to high school kids right out of high school. They got to get you when you're young and dumb, and you have no opportunities. This is why they have like JROTC programs in high school, and I'm sure they still do. They had that in my school, and I wasn't even in it. I was in PE instead of ROTC. I used to clown on people for being in ROTC, but that's just an example of how they commercialize this enslavement program and have to really advertise toward the child mind. This is why G.I. Joe is in commercials, and the superhero program, because the only opportunities that you have to really to do something of any kind of value easily is stuff like the military. So it's available, and it's not like everybody else. So they actually suck in a good amount of really potent souls go into that, and you'll see a really like mixed in with a lot of crazy people. Like, I use crazy like loosely, but you know what I mean. I mean, it's you get such a thick group of soul energy from people who are like in the inner cities and low income and so on and so forth. Like, we go through a lot. We've gone through a lot from very young ages, and that's like quality of life. That's experience that turns into wisdom. And when all of that energy just gets taken by the military or the university system, which is the same thing, it's the same kind of program. It's just indoctrination, just in different intensities. Once you get locked into those spaces, you lose a part of yourself. I mean, it never really like goes away forever, but it distances your conscious reality from your soul potential, because you've locked yourself into the idea of yourself. And the idea of yourself is like the commercial version, like the Kardashian version of who and what you are. And now so many people are invested in who and what you think you are, which is the Kardashian version, that sometimes you can't even get out of that. You can't get out of that because too much is invested in it. Too much of life surrounding friends, family. They know you from the Paris Hilton version of who and what you are, and you can't go back to the person you used to be, which is who you really are, like the essence of who you are before you were indoctrinated into the mainstream version of reality. So this is why it's so difficult for people to even entertain something like flat earth, for people to entertain something like their universe is completely not what they were told it was, because they're not who they are. Their brains are not even who they are. And in fact, generations upon generations are not who they are. I mean, people can get in this like debating, this argument back and forth of everybody is who they are. I understand that, but for example purposes, what I'm saying is that there is a definite essence of your soul that will never be, it'll never be infected by the physical reality and this experience. It will always be here. It's like your heartbeat. Your heartbeat is like an example of the essence of who you are. Like the heart of a child, the essence of a child, like the personality of the child. It's just natural. It's who they are. It's the person that they are. They don't have anything density kind of downloaded for who they think they should be. They just are who they are. And now you have, growing up, you have this new person that has adjusted to society, and society is completely diseased and broken, and installs all of these versions of, you should be like this, you should look like this, you should act like this, you should have this, you should do this at this time frame, you should do this at this time frame. If you're at this time frame and you haven't done this, then something's wrong with you. If you're at this time frame and you have done this, then something's really wrong with you. Like all these different things that are out there that make people adjust their ideas of themselves more deeply into the artificial versions of themselves. It just keeps going deeper and deeper. It's like a lie. Like once you start lying, you have to keep building upon that lie. Just like heliocentrism. They had to come out with first the cartoons of, just back in the day, they just had like, oh, this is what Earth looks like, and then this is what Jupiter looks like, and this is what the sun and the moon looks like. They're all spheres, and they go around like this, and this is really, here, you can have one. Here, you can have a globe. Look, you're a part of knowing the world, and savage and primitive people of our past, they didn't know anything about this. Like, you're an evolved human being. Look, here's what backs it up. The telescope. We can see the circumference of Saturn and the moon and the sun and this and that. And look, here's a theory of gravity. Here's a theory of relativity. And look, here's a spaceship going onto the moon. And look, here's a camera of them walking around on the moon. And look, here's CGI images of Saturn. And we just sent a satellite, Cassini satellite, to go take images of Saturn. Oh, wow. It's really believable now. It's like building upon, constantly building upon. Like NASA. NASA was the original bullshit. Now they got to put SpaceX out there, and SpaceX has to build up that story. Now that SpaceX is out there to make the timeline move faster, make the illusions move faster, because it takes like twice as long for NASA to do something that SpaceX could do. So because, and this is another thing that the race between SpaceX and NASA does, what it does is it says, if SpaceX can do what NASA does in half the amount of time that NASA does it, then you should be putting more money, your tax money, into NASA so it could catch up to SpaceX. That's another reason why SpaceX is out there. Knowing that all the money that SpaceX and NASA gets, it's all the same. It's all the same illusory programming. But you passed the legislation, supposedly. You actually are believing that the legislation is being passed based upon your need. Well, basically, it's just commercialized. They're telling you, yeah, all they need is a few actors to get out there and say, you know what? We need to get serious about space exploration. Come together. Get your politicians to pass legislation to double the budget of NASA for space exploration. So instead of $19 billion a year or $50 million a day, let's double that. Let's give them $40 million or $40 billion a year, and let's hurry up and get to Mars. For what, you stupid asses? But people are going to believe it. People are going to believe because Sandra Bullock, George Clooney, and Tom Hanks got on a fucking camera and said, you should come together and do this. Or Susan Sarandon stood in front of a television next to Ashley Judd and started screaming about Bernie Sanders. It's the same shit. All of this is turning your potential energy, your soul energy, your life, your time is your soul energy. When you go into that 9 to 5, and I'm not saying like this to come down on anybody, because I know you have responsibilities. You got to do what you got to do, because there's no less than two worlds existing here. What I'm saying is that the intention of this system is to implode your soul. The intention of this system is to steal your time through these illusions. So when they say this is what means successful, you need to give your life away to this system and you'll be successful. That is literally stealing your time, which is stealing your soul essence, because you only have you only have your time, your moments. And if the majority of your moments are sucked into an enslavement program, then you're a slave. It doesn't matter if you're a high functioning slave or a completely indoctrinated slave. It doesn't matter. Or a aggressive, progressive slave. It doesn't matter. The majority of the videos that I'm putting on this channel are to address the enslavement program. First and foremost is not to attack the groups or the movements that I reference as why they exist. It's to use them as an example to share with people the the distraction mechanisms that are used consistently for us to accept the training wheel movement of any kind of movement, any kind of revolution. All of these revolutions, so-called revolutions, all of them got training wheels on them. It's like training wheels. All of these revolutions, they've all been orchestrated. Black Lives Matter, the civil rights movement, eventually they might have started out real. They could have started out with a few people saying, you know what, fuck this. Like the Black Panthers coming together, like really, before they were infiltrated by the CIA and then manipulated. That energy was just manipulated into a particular mindset. And then they actually physically took people out. The government actually pointed people out and took them out. But what I'm saying is that this energy, it starts out a certain way and then it gets manipulated to do a certain thing. That's the alchemy of this program. So what happens is these so-called movements, they might start out real. But since the system has so much influence over people and is very intelligent at the same time, they can just co-opt that movement, put training wheels on it, put a bow on it, and then control. This is what controlled opposition is. And then control what that movement does and where it's going. So it's basically like you might start off a movement by learning how to ride a bicycle on your own. But what happens is you go backwards when it starts to grow into the mainstream system. And what the mainstream media does is it puts training wheels on it. So it limits your movement. It limits your speed. It limits your scope. It limits your confidence. It actually slows down your progression. And then it also keeps other people and say, look at those people. They got training wheels on. They're not able to do anything. Why? Because they got training wheels on. And then as it goes further, they turn it into a thing where you're no longer riding a bike freely, but now you're on training wheels, and you're also on training wheels on a treadmill, and that treadmill is the system. So every movement that you have gets de-evolved into the system. So now you're riding a bike called movement, called revolution, with training wheels on a treadmill, and you're not going anywhere. So you're actually powering the system, and they're harvesting that energy that you are putting into that, riding that bike with training wheels on a treadmill. And then they're just going to use that program or that energy to benefit the growth of the system. So this is what happened with the Civil Rights Act. So the Black Panthers might have started out real, making bag lunches and breakfasts for the kids, and starting up the WIC program back in the day, and informing people of the intention of this system, the depths of what's really going on here as far as enslaving people. Like the Black Panthers started out that way in Oakland, like in the back of schools and in people's houses, people, just regular ass people putting together sandwiches and into some bags and, getting them to these kids because they didn't have no damn food, and getting these women who were single mothers or these families who didn't have money for food, getting them that stuff, coming together as a community. And then what happens as it grows, it gets infiltrated by assholes and people who are part of the government who steer it into the treadmill. They steer it into the political tentacles that actually limit it. So this is the same thing that I was mentioning in the last video that was happening with the Occupy movement. So the Occupy movement started off where people were just like, man, fuck the system, fuck these bankers, this whole thing has to go. And we're just gonna, put our bodies out here on the streets and yell this shit out until people start to wake up. Then what happens? You have people talking about, we need to get into this sustainable development program and start doing this sustainable stuff. So now you have a compartmentalized system where some people are saying, we need to do this. And then you have other people saying, well, we need to do this because this is feasible. This is the only thing that we could actually do. By that time, they already killed it. They killed it already. This is what's happening with flat earth. They're saying flat earth is just about going mainstream. We need to keep the system the way it is. And the only thing that's feasible with flat earth is just to be happy with what we have, happy with the Western civilization, and let's just wait till it goes mainstream and don't do anything else, and it'll just be fine. These are what your so-called leaders are out there promoting with their type of mentality or type of approach to this system. It's not so much that they are bad people, like consciously bad people. What I'm saying is that they have no fucking idea how deep this program goes and what's really going on here when you're talking about actual movement. See, flat earth the training wheels haven't been put on flat earth yet, but your so-called leaders already have those training wheels. They never let those training wheels go. They need those fucking training wheels. Why? Because those training wheels got gold Daytons on them. They're plated. They got rims. They're lifted. They got everything. These are gold-plated training wheels people are wearing, and they're proud of this shit. Look at that secret show with Mark and Patricia. Look at my stove. This is a fancy coffee pot. Look at my sink. Ooh, ha ha, look at all this shit. Priding themselves in this materialistic Western enslavement program as if this is just, oh yeah. And then just use the victim program of, oh, I'm just showing, showing the human side. What? And then she's going to victimize herself. Same thing Mark does, oh yeah. She plays the dopey ass fucking role all the time. Oh, well, trolls are going to go against us. You know what? We should just make a video dedicated to what the trolls say. Dedicated to our victimization. Oh, listen to this comment. You're a tranny. Oh, you're this, you're that. Oh, other people are such bad people. Inherently, that makes us good people. So everything is just okay. Everything will just be fine. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. We're not bad people. We're good people. I know I have a good heart. I have a really good heart. And that's the only thing that matters. Everything is just okay. Those are the most dangerous fucking assholes out there. I've said it over and over and over again. They are unaware of their own limitations. They've gold-plated those training wheels. And they will take this, like I said in Occupy, and like I said in reference to the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement didn't start off as a civil rights movement. That's what happened when it got training wheels slapped on it and when it got slapped onto that treadmill. And they said, this is feasible. We'll give you civil rights. So you just shut the fuck up. Shut your mouth. Shut your slave mouth. Go back to work now that you have civil rights. Did it do anything for racism? No, I told you to shut your fucking mouth. Shut your nigger mouth and go back to work. We told you to stop being divisive. We told you to stop, separating things. We're trying to bring things together. We're trying to bring you niggers into our circle of success. That's what the civil rights was. Because in the beginning, the Black Panthers weren't talking about, let's get a Civil Rights Act passed. Fuck that. They weren't talking about that. That's what the system did later on. That's what the system did when it co-opted it. No different than what happened with every single other movement that is out there. It gets co-opted and funneled into the treadmill. And then they just adopt it. This is no different than what the New Age agenda is doing for the United Nations so-called sustainable development of the entire world. The New Age, people in the New Age, like individuals, people with good hearts that, you know, they don't know about like how enslaved this program is. They've just looked the other way and said, you know, well, I'm not just going to be a part of it, and that's good enough. You know, and that's not a bad thing. At least you're not, you know, consciously being a part of it or just being apathetic towards it. Like, people are just, there's a difference between conscious apathy and unconscious apathy, but ultimately in the long run they're both the same. If you're calling yourself, and it's actually worse if you leave yourself in unconscious apathy for the rest of your life, because it's harder to see. At least this year, if you're consciously apathetic, your soul will peek through eventually, and it will just be like, you know what the fuck are you doing? What are you constantly looking the other way? Are you gonna do this forever? Are you gonna be this piece of shit individual forever? Some people will. They'll be like, I'm just fine. I'm just fine being a piece of shit, apathetic asshole. Good, you know, fine. You're not gonna be able to run away from yourself. Whatever you do, that shit will carry on. Eventually, this life or the next, you'll have to do something about that reality. So what's happening right now with the New Age program is that they're having unconscious apathetic people, which is actually creating these prescription drugs of, you know, well, it's just karma. Like I said in the video, those people are dealing with karmic timeline issues, and it's their own karmic timeline that they chose to grow up in the ghetto. It's their own karmic timeline that they chose to get bombed by a drone sent out by the so-called free world. It's on their own karmic timeline that they were living in the Amazon rainforest, and loggers came and just fucking slaughtered them because they were in the way of them getting their lumber, their wood from the Amazon rainforest. It's their karmic problems. How many fucking years are you New Age assholes gonna allow this shit to go on? That's the co-opted. That's the civil rights part of actual revolution in reference to the New Age. What, on the other side is, like I explained earlier, what the United Nations is trying to do, which is, you know, say, you know, let's all come together as humans and just be sustainable fuckers and just be sustainable. Because why? Because climate change, okay? Because poverty, okay? Because, you know, and if you're against sustainable development, you must be some kind of conspiracy fucking asshole. Get out of here, you bad villain person. You're evil. Same shit was happening in Occupy. It's like, oh, you're just a divisive person. You must be a controlled opposition. You must be an infiltrator or something like that. It's like, you don't want to be a part of sustainable development? What kind of demon are you? Get the fuck out. That's how this program works. No different than Mark and Patricia victimizing itself and saying that you're the bad guy because you think differently. You're the bad guy because you're talking shit. You're attacking me. No, I'm attacking the essence of what you think you are. I'm attacking what you're ignorant to. And since you're ignorant of it, you take it personally. Mark and Patricia are going to take this shit personally because they're ignorant of the fact that they got gold-plated training wheels and are riding a fucking child bike on a treadmill, calling it a flat earth revolution. They max out at flat earth going mainstream. It's ridiculous. It's no different than, you know, people are talking like calling themselves aggressive progressives, maxing out at, you know, another politician, Bernie Sanders. If you really think that there's a difference between Donald Trump, Barack Obama, George Bush, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders, you're fucked. You're done. I'm saying that as a shock value in order to just say, look, you're just in a different cell in the same prison. It's the same thing. Now, it's not to say you're hopeless. It's just to say that that entire system, that entire mindset is based upon enslavement. And as long as you keep limiting yourself to that enslavement program, you're going to get what you asked for. If you ask for a slave master, you will get a slave master. That's what this whole fake ass democracy is. And then you pride yourself in it. So I'll close this out and just list off the different, hopefully I'll get through this without having to go into depth with it. I think I've explained myself enough as far as like how these programs work. And I just wanted to give some examples of some of the movements that are out there. And keep in mind the whole time that I'm listing this off, because I don't really want to go into what I already explained and repeat myself in a different way. Just keep in mind the whole training wheel aspect, the treadmill aspect, and you know, starting off real and what happens and all that other stuff. So obviously, I've already explained the flat earth. So you have factions of the flat earth. You have the so-called flat earth movement. So you have people who are wanting it to go mainstream. These are the majority. These are your so-called top brass leaders. They're talking about, you know, this should just go mainstream and then that's it. And, you know, anybody else that is, you know, attacking our personalities or our character, they're just, you know, something's wrong with them. They must have psychological problems. Oh, something's wrong. They should be institutionalized. They have anger issues. Fuck you. Fuck you. And all that other shit. So yeah, mainstream mentalities. It's just another slave. It's just a Bernie Sanders of the flat earth. If you're sitting around waiting for the flat earth to go mainstream and you have this potential energy to explain that your slave masters have been lying to you about the very fabric of your universe, and then you just gift wrapped it for them to just sell it back to the mainstream. And I know that consciously people aren't doing this. Like, they don't want that to happen. They actually think that when it goes mainstream, that will just change the world. It'll just wake everybody up. It won't. It'll wake people up into another prison. If you tell the flat earth story from the mainstream perspective, you're already putting training wheels on it and you're prepping it for the treadmill. If you tell the flat earth story from human enslavement, from all of these other programs that are a part of this illusory society, that's what will give people more of a chance of realizing what heliocentrism actually means, what it actually does. Until then, you're just going to have people saying out there still, what does flat earth matter? Even if it goes mainstream, people are going to say, why does flat earth matter? And the system is going to use that against the people for its own benefit. They're going to say the same thing. Why does flat earth matter? And if it does, now we should just come together and be together as one, because we are all connected with the earth even more. Hey, case closed. Flat earth closed. Move on. Let's just get the next politician in there. He's a flat earther. She's a flat earther. Whatever it is. And let's just pass some legislation for some more bullshit. Let's just expand NASA and merge NASA and SpaceX into something else. Let's expand the United Nations to be the sustainable development system for the whole world. And let's just happily activate the New World Order. And we should, you know, come together in some kind of world religion, like a human religion. Hey, where's Oprah at? Where's the New Age program? Okay, look, let's listen to these channelers. Look, we've already been listening to a channeler at the United Nations for however many years. He's been speaking at the United Nations 7 times. His name is Cryon. These are actual facts if you want to look at them. They actually had a channeler, a New Age channeler, speak at the United Nations no less than 7 times. This is just explaining how I'm seeing what this treadmill program might do in the future. So anyway, utilizing this energy out there, the alien agenda, the new age agenda, the new world order agenda, the flat earth agenda, all this stuff that's out there, they could co-opt all of this and just repackage it to people who never had, they don't have the ability to think for themselves. I mean, they always have the ability, but they're so far from themselves, they can't think for themselves. Social media thinks for them. The mainstream media thinks for them. Politicians think for them. Alex Jones thinks for them. Stephen Colbert, John Oliver, Bill Maher. Somebody else thinks for you. They package your thoughts and they make you laugh about it, lock it in with food, sex, and drugs, and then you just go about your life, and you're good, successful. Congratulations, you're successful. So flat Earth is into these factions. So you have the mainstream, then you have the Christian flat earthers too. So you have, this is just an example of other people coming at it from whatever perspective it is. But this is just another, the most vibrant sort of groups that I see and have been observing out there. They take all of the flat earth information. They don't look at any of the deception. And even if they do, they don't really care. They just chop it up to the devil, or, you know, whatever is counter to Jesus in the Bible, and say, yeah, well, heliocentrism is anti-Bible and flat earth is pro-Bible. And so boom, you got a 2-for-1 special. You got an awesome connection with nature and true science, and you also have the Bible and a religion. 2-for-1, physical reality and the soul reality, all balled up into one flat earth movement. Congratulations. Join us. Join the Christian flat earthers who just know everything. We don't only know one thing, which is flat earth. We know 2 really important things: Christianity and flat earth. How can you beat that? You should just throw cash in your chips and jump on board and be a part of this Christian rock group called Flat Earth Christianity. Same shit. And they'll just sit up there rocking out to the Bible quotes. Isaiah, Deuteronomy, Christians, we did it. So you got flat earth Christians, then you have just they're not gonna look at anything else. They ain't gonna give a shit. If you're so locked into the Bible and everything else, and that's it, and flat earth, and that's it, you're not gonna give a shit about the Muslims, the Rohingya being genocided. In your eyes, they deserve to be genocided. Why? Because they're fucking Muslims and they're not Christian. In your mind, I'm just saying it like you're just acting like it doesn't exist. If you have that Christian mindset, that's what a lot of Christians say, you know, in reference to me and other people. If you're just not a Christian, you're just damned to hell. Fuck you and your life. The real God, our Bible God, doesn't give a fuck about you because you turned your back on him. How dare you? How dare you? You little baby Muslim who was just born here, you little baby Buddhist, you little baby Hindu, you're fucking going to hell. Why? Because you don't carry around a Bible. And you know what? So what? You deserve it. Good job. That's what this whole mentality is with a lot of Christians that are out there. And even a lot of Christians who don't necessarily think like that, they pride themselves in not thinking like that. But at the same time, they won't do anything about saying why that's a fucking problem. They won't acknowledge that mentality. They won't do anything about it. Why? Because if they start doing something about that, their own critical thought on that mentality will start to eat the entire system. It will eat the Bible will eat itself with its own words if it starts to empathize with all of the Most High's life force children. It has to keep itself and pride itself. Flat Earth being, caked on top of Christianity in the Bible is just another version of priding itself. Like, people pride themselves in how many Bible verses they can pull out of their ass in any moment. So now people have Bible verses they can pull out of their ass, Christianity that they pride themselves, and flat Earth that they can pull out of their ass too. So you can pull Bible verses, you can pull flat Earth curvature math, you can pull NASA lies, you can pull scientific history talking about, this, and this. And, that makes you an amazing human being. Why? Because you're like 10 degrees separated from a completely indoctrinated sheeple. And, more power to you. Everybody's going through their own journey in their own way. Like I said, I'm not coming down on anybody. It might sound like it with my tone and everything. I'm just saying examples, because ultimately in myself, I'm like talking, like I said in the last video, talking like in a circle of friends. But ultimately, I don't really have this I don't carry around that. You can perceive these perspectives as judgment on people. But me personally, when I wake up every day and I walk around, this shit's done. Like, I put it in this video and I leave it there. I don't have any judgments on people for that. There's a difference between like carrying this energy and judging people for it, and then just being aware of this energy and just leaving it as it be. I know people judge me now. People have judged me when I was in Occupy. People judged me when I was, spouting out that new age shit. People were judging. People are always going to judge you. And I realized that because I've been judged for so long. So I realized that it's also completely ridiculous to hold on. See, judgment has to be held on to. You have to hold on to it. You have to have the judgment and then hold on. You have to be aware of that point and then hold on to it. That's what the difference between judgment and awareness of something is. See, if you're aware of it, you can just be aware of it and it not be a part of you. Like, you don't have to hold on to it and hold it against people. I don't hold this shit against people. I know people are going through their journey, and that's the way they're going to go through it. Just like I went through the fucking military like a dumbass. And then, but I wasn't dumb at that time. I was actually just doing, I was following what my intuition at that time based upon, my own perspective, and so on and so forth. Same for going to school, same for going into Occupy, same for going through the New Age agenda. It's no different than anybody else going through their own journey. So since I've gone through those various journeys, I know the downfalls of holding on to that kind of information, which actually converts that, like chemically converts that information into judgments. So I don't really give a shit about that. So people are going to go in the comment section and start, losing their shit about, the Bible and all that other stuff, whatever it is, fine. Do what you got to do. But just know from my own voice that I'm not looking down upon you for however it is you're thinking. Like, even with Mark and Patricia, I know that, they're doing whatever it is that they're doing because that's just who they are. That's giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're not completely like controlled opposition that's paid by the CIA and so on and so forth. I don't know that. I don't know that they're not that for sure. I don't. So I can't really say that. But just from my observation, they're really small potatoes. They're really kind of still small potatoes. As much as they might seem like big people out there, they really ain't shit. Subscriber base don't matter, and people who know about that shit doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the long run. All of it's just an illusion. So ultimately, when you bring it all together, it's just energy, and the energy is how it's manipulated by the so-called powers that be, and how it's moved over time. Like, are you going to allow it to be, sucked into a treadmill? Are you going to allow it to put training wheels on it that will just pay into the system? Are you actually going to step outside of your bubble and do something about this entire energetic enslavement program? And these movements are that I told myself not to get sidetracked on. are just other examples of how that system is continually growing. So those are pretty much the biggest factions with like flat earth. Yeah, the mainstream flat earthers, which are like the top brass of people who just like say flat earth is everything. Flat earth is going to save the world. And as long as you just think flat earth and you know, flat power, flat, keep it flat. Everything is flat. Flat. Once everybody thinks that it's flat and everybody comes to this flat, then everything is just going to be okay. Keep telling yourself that. And watch how this shit progresses over time. And you'll just keep it flat your ass into another civil rights flat act. And it won't do shit for addressing the infrastructure of this system. And like I said, you have the Christian side of the flat earth movement, where people, you know, can't let go of whatever that is, because a lot of these are comfort. They're like comfort food. It's like a security blanket or a security pillow. Like my brother and sister, they both had like a blanket and a pillow. But you know what I mean? It's like security blankets. It's the same thing. You just carry it around until you don't need it anymore, because you have that. You've lost the fear, so you don't need insecurity anymore. Or you process the fear, so you don't need insecurity anymore. When you process that fear, you empower your willpower from the inside out. So your security comes from a higher security from the inside, because you're no longer limited to the external version of security. So anyway, these are all security blankets that I'm listing off. And most of the shit, all of them, yeah, really, all of them pretty much exist still in the slave program. So you have like I said, and I'll just list them because I'm already kind of tired from talking so much on this video. So you have flat earth. I explained that. You got the black conscious community, and there's all kinds of factions in the black conscious community. You have Pan-Africanism, you have the kinetic, you know, perspectives. Then you have what I see as the most commercialized of people who call themselves woke and part of the conscious community and so on and so forth, are the people who are promoting this sort of black empowerment through black economics. And that's not empowerment at all. So they're going to have these people. And as much as I respect, like the image I showed earlier, Nas and Lauryn Hill, you know, promoting black economic empowerment, from all the information that they've spoken about and released, and they're still a part of the system too. And how I'm seeing it, whether they know it or not, this channeling people into this black economics program is still channeling people into a box within a box within the enslavement program. And like H. Rap Brown said in the other videos that I was talking about, yeah, when Flat Earth goes mainstream, it'll be to hide these realities. It was the first one. H. Rap Brown said, like, it doesn't matter what you do with the money, because the people who make the money are the ones who actually have the power. So if you call yourself empowering yourself just because now you have switched it from the White House green money to now black economic green money, it doesn't matter, because the Federal Reserve makes green money. And the Federal Reserve is the corporation that's hand in hand with the White House. And the Federal Reserve can just say, look, we're no longer printing green money anymore. We're now printing red money. Now all of your green money isn't worth shit. Doesn't matter how many black economic programs you have out there. It's not going to matter, because the Federal Reserve can just say, fuck you, we're printing red money now. And that's where the power is. So if you're priding yourself in black economics and black this and black that based upon still being inside the slave system, you're limiting yourself. You're shining up, polishing up those training wheels, getting it ready for a bigger treadmill. Instead of being confined to a skinny treadmill, you're just, empowering yourself to be on a more functional treadmill. But the treadmill is what? That energy is going right into the system. So this is what I'm seeing is pretty much the biggest faction of the so-called black conscious communities right now. It's like they're not really challenging the depths of this program. And then you have Pan-Africans who are just saying, look, we need to just go back to Africa. Fuck everything else. It's not about this American. They just say everything is bad. And then what that inherently does is it separates you from the realization that the so-called melanated people were already here. Africa is not the majority of the melanated people's origins here in the Americas. The Americas are the origins of where we come from. So if you're talking about Pan-Africanism and, just go back and reconnect with your African roots because that's where black people come from, you're already starting out on some bullshit because you're not acknowledging all of the history, which is another version of treadmills and training wheels. And because people have been, trying to ride their bike for so long, and that's another thing, another addition to this analogy. Most people don't even know how to ride a bike. They don't even know they have a bike. And they've been trying to ride a bike without training wheels for so long. Or they've been scared of getting on that bike. So people who ride around with shiny training wheels on a treadmill seem like fucking superheroes. So they'll just follow whatever group they see out there that seems to be functioning. So these movements, or so-called revolutions, are high functioning training wheel programs. And what happens is that the majority of people just fall into that group because there's a camaraderie there. And, there's some kind of intellectual information there. It's another safety blanket, a safety bubble. And you learn something through each program. You learn something through each experience. And that's why I said there's nothing wrong. When I mention these, I'm not saying that you're wrong for going through this system. I understand that people have to go through these systems. What I'm saying is that if you limit yourself to any one of those systems and then start down talking other people for, other systems, and mostly not being a part of your system, then, that's when you've taken it a step into further to shining your training wheels and, priding yourself against other people. What I'm saying is that don't ever limit yourself to any one system. Continually grow. The system wants you to be a part of one program, one system, because if they lock you into one group, they got you. They got you by the balls. Because just like what happened with like Black Lives Matter, it's very constrained. It's like, obviously Black Lives Matter, but since they've labeled you as such, and then they can label you as dangerous and destructive and thugs because, they put some actual people out there. Same thing happened in Occupy. When we were out there protesting, standing on the City Hall lawn, building an entire community on the lawn of the Oakland City Hall, all they got to do is pay a few, black bloc people to go out there and throw some bottles at the police officers, which will instigate, tear gas, flashbang grenades, and rubber bullets being shot out to crowds of people to disperse us. It's that easy. They don't need much to manipulate the mentality. And what are they going to do? They're going to televise exactly what they want. Occupy protesters throwing rocks and bottles at the police officers made the police officers had to defend themselves and throw tear gas grenades and shoot rubber bullets out there at people and flashbang. It's like a war zone in downtown Oakland. Those damn protesters, They don't know what's going on. They're just destructive thugs, just like the news told us. You know how easy that is? So the same thing happens. And then what gets lost? The story, the intent, the reality of the whole interaction gets lost because people will believe whatever the hell comes on the television, whatever the treadmill told them to believe. So you have that's the way this whole system works. So that's what's happening with all of your protest groups out there, and that's just another faction that's out there. It's another training wheel, shining your training wheels. It's another pre-packaging energy, potential energy, and kinetic energy for the kinetic energy of the system. So you're riding a bike. You're putting kinetic energy out there from your potential energy of knowledge, knowing how to ride a bike and having training wheels. But what? You're still on a treadmill. So that kind of lumped in protesters, Black Lives Matter, along with the movement of so-called black conscious communities, black economic groups, and then Pan-African groups, and then, whatever groups it is. Ultimately, a lot of them still are leaning on the fiat currency system as, we're so hopeless. We can't do anything about the system. So let's just metaphysics the shit out of this realization and just, be the most conscious people in the universe who still believe in heliocentrism and the Federal Reserve. So, whatever. But there's another example. So another example, like I said earlier, the so-called aggressive progressives, they think this is the same thing. You're on a treadmill. You think there's a difference between progressives and aggressive progressives and Democrats and Republicans? No, absolutely not. It's all the same shit. Do not try to convince me or anybody else of that bullshit. You're just a fancy slave, an intellectual slave. It's the same thing. You're just asking for a lighter whip. That's what aggressive progressives are. It's like Democrats and Republicans are so stupid. They have so many scars on their backs that they can take the heavy whip of mainstream media and whatever's getting pumped out through the government. But aggressive progressives are a little more intelligent in a sense of critical thought. So they have to ask for a less intense whip, not such a thick gauge of a whip. We need a Bernie Sanders whip. Same shit. No different. So what I get. So the new age. And another thing, and I'll leave it on this because this will help me breeze through it. Another way to see this is to see the limitations with this system is to see, what these people are looking forward to. So like I said, with Pan-African movement, they're just saying, we should just all go back to Africa. That'll fix everything. Okay, good luck with that. So-called black conscious communities. We need to have black economics and everything will be okay. Okay, good luck with that. Aggressive progressives. Okay, we need to have Bernie Sanders as the president, as the head slave masters. All right, everything, good luck with that. Protesters. The bankers need to be accountable and held, responsible for all of their lies. Okay, if you think that's the only faction, if that's the only part of this system that matters, good luck with that because it's more complex than that. And like I said, this shit is so compartmentalized. They can implode any one of these systems. Right now, Flat Earth is imploding the university system and the scientism community. And even then, it still won't matter because they could co-opt Flat Earth and sell you another version of the university system, another version of scientism. That's how resilient this system is. That's how compartmentalized this system is. And, you know, even flat earth won't matter. You're asking for it to go mainstream. It's not going to matter, because you're going to have millions and billions of people who are still slaves, who are still asking the system to provide them with some kind of information about how they should act, how they should be, how they should think. Flat or round, you're still a slave. It's not going to matter. So that's why I said it's so important to focus on the enslavement system as a whole. All of these systems, these factions. So you have, what else is there? The New Age program. The New Age program is just hoping for the government to unify everybody. And also extraterrestrials. They want the government. This is what the New Age program wants to do. And this is what Ancient Aliens is like setting the foundation for. The New Age program, their goals ultimately, I mean, it's very general, obviously, because it's going to be different for everybody. But large parts of people's mentalities who are still locked into the New Age program, they think that change will be good when the government is exposed for hiding extraterrestrial life, for hiding UFOs, for hiding technology. And once they release this alien technology and the alien disclosure, then everything will just be amazing. That's what people in the New Age community are looking for. And I said, like I said, it's very general. I know it's more complex than that, but I'm running out of time. This video has gone on long enough, so I want to just kind of close this out. But this is to give an example of how people box themselves in and lock themselves into a treadmill mentality. So the New Age program is actually setting up the foundation for the United Nations to just give them exactly what they're asking for. They'll give them their extraterrestrial disclosure, which is why they have Cryon speaking at the United Nations. They'll give them their technology. They'll give them their sustainable development. They'll give them their unity under the flag of the New World Order. They'll give them everything Oprah's been asking for, because she's a part of that shit. And, you know, the New Age will be happy. This is why everything is limited in these various factions. So you have the alternative media already pretty much presented that with the whole, progressive, progressive mentality, aggressive progressives. They just want old style politics to change. They want old style mainstream media to turn into perspectives like that are on TYT and Stephen Colbert and Samantha Bee and John Oliver. They want the mainstream media to turn into comedy shows, perspectives like Trevor Noah. They want them to get real. So once that implodes, which is already happening, most people get their news and their perspectives from Trevor Noah, Samantha Bee, Stephen Colbert, John Oliver, Bill Maher, and all these other people. They don't listen to the news anymore en masse. This is my assumption on, how people are thinking. I mean, a lot of people still get only their information, but the laughter is what I said. Laughter and joy and happiness actually locks your truth into your reality more so than, linear information that comes from the news. So when you see it from that perspective, you can understand that mostly everybody gets their energy or their information, or energy too, from these comedy shows, which is their information streams. So you have all of that information, which is the transition, and that's making people happy. People are happy that TYT is out there because they think they're getting a deeper layer of truth, and actually they're getting a deeper layer of indoctrination. But this is part of that compartmentalized system that I was talking about. Another version of this is Alex Jones. Alex Jones is part of this. It's the same kind of program like TYT and like the what the comedy shows do for the mainstream media, but sprinkle in conspiracy theory and other information that so-called challenges the system. And what Alex Jones and InfoWars and a lot of these other conspiracy channels, so-called conspiracy channels, are looking forward to is, and I won't speak for other conspiracy channels, I'll just, use Alex Jones as an example, because he's like a good general example of what other people are still coming from when they call themselves truthers and exposing this information. Alex Jones just found himself in the Donald Trump Make America Great Again from the 1776 perspective. It's the same shit. It's another limitation program. It's just, getting your training wheels ready for the treadmill. And then the treadmill is 1776, the patriots who are facing the globalists. It's the same shit. You're still on a treadmill. You're not acknowledging what predates the treadmill. In fact, you want the treadmill to get stronger. That's what Alex Jones is. That's what TYT is. That's what Bernie Sanders is. That's what all these activists are out there telling you to vote for this and vote for that. That's what that is. They want the treadmill to get stronger. Same goes for these controlled opposition conspiracy people. A lot of the other side of the conspiracy world is just looking for validation from the mainstream media. Meaning that they want the mainstream media to die. They want it to implode, which will validate all of their work. And it's already imploding when it's transitioning into this comedic TYT, Alex Jones shit. It's just being drawn out over time. But ultimately, a lot of the conspiracy world people just want to be validated by the mainstream media. This is no different than what people who are wanting flat Earth to go mainstream are doing. They need the validation from their slave masters through the mainstream media. And they might not pawn it off out there like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing. But when you limit yourself to hoping that the mainstream or the mainstream media just picks up flat Earth and run with it, you're powerless. You're packaging it for them, and it's dead already. So that's what a lot of the conspiracy world is doing. They're waiting for the system. That is not an empowered space. It's a disempowered space. It's still within the system. And none of these groups are talking about the foundations of these systems. This is what I'm talking about in this whole video. The foundation of these institutions is what really matters, what will really empower people. Once you start transmuting that fear into critical thought of what it means to not at all be needing this enslavement system, that's when you start getting into a space of real empowerment. That's when you start realizing that all of these groups are not in the interest of humanity. They're not in the interest of critical thought. They're in the interest of protecting the system. And the system knows this. So the system is going to utilize these factions to expand the system, to make the system more powerful and grow this artificial consciousness through people's belief systems. They believe in the black conscious community. They believe in the flat earth going mainstream community. They believe in the Christian flat earth community. They believe in the aggressive progressives. They believe in Bernie Sanders. They believe in the Pan-African movement. They believe in all of these crews, these groups that are just like, hey, we're cool because we're not like them. But you're just creating another group. So that's basically what I wanted to share with this video. I wanted to expand upon the belief system video, the last video, and really go into how these belief systems or these factions, these groups are actually being used to expand the system and implode your own idea of critical thought, implode your actual forward progress and manipulate it. Steal that potential and kinetic energy and channel it into a treadmill. So I've gone on long enough. I'm tired. I need a glass of water. And thank you again for the support. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.